We're going to start off by looking for the paper in your packet that says Sea Otter or Otter, and that is what we're going to use for our background. In addition, you're also going to need a piece of computer paper, so you might want to have that stuff ready. I also have a blue and a white crayon, my watercolor paints, and some fresh water. So the first thing we are going to do is use our crayons. So I'm just going to set this aside a little bit. And we are going to create the ocean, the sea that the otter is floating in. And we know that the ocean has beautiful blue-green shades in it, different colors. And there's also some white. You know, when the waves are moving, you get those white ripples, white caps even, on the water. So the very first thing we're going to do, if you have a white oil pastel, I recommend using that, and blue. If you do not, that's perfectly fine. Crayons will do. It's very hard to see white crayon on white paper. So one of the things that you can do, and will also make a better success with your project, is press hard. So I'm going to start off by doing a few spirals. And if you remember, I'm going to draw one over here. You can do this when you have cardboard on your desk. A spiral is something that does this. Do you remember? There we go. So I'm going to, up in this corner, I'm going to start with the dot, and I'm really pressing hard with my crayon. And then I'm going to go, well, you can see how hard I was pressing with my crayon. I'm going to go around and around and around. I'm pressing so hard, I kind of have to hold on to the paper. All right, I'm going to do one here in the middle. Start with the dot, color it in, like press hard, and go out bigger and bigger. I'm going to do one down in this bottom corner. Press with the dot, and then I'm going to go around and around. I'm pressing so hard I can already kind of see it on the paper, but if you can't, you can kind of tilt your paper until you can see. I cannot tell you how important it is to press hard with your crayon. And then I'm going to add a few lines, curvy lines, around the outside corners here and there. And that should do this part. You can also add a few curvy lines. Oh, I'm not pressing hard enough. Let me get in there. Yep, there we go. Do you see how I'm getting some curves in here? There we go. That's going to add movement when we paint our background. We're going to see movement in the water. And of course, that white crayon will show up. So the next step is to give a wash to this whole background. And you are familiar with how to do a wash by now. So the first thing, and I have a spot right here in my tray that will work for my blue paint. So I'm dragging water over into the color pad, stirring it up, and then I'm going to put it over here in my tray. We're going to paint with the puddle. By now you're experts at painting with the puddle. We've used a lot of watercolors during this break from school, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm getting my wash. You know what I always like to tell you? Test your wash to see if it's dark enough. I love that. If you want it lighter, you add more water. But I like this color. I'm going to make a little more puddle. And just to be sure I have enough paint to cover this paper, I am going to stir in a little more water, and then I'm going to start painting with the puddle for my background. Now here's something you're going to notice right away. If you pressed hard enough with your crayon, you're going to see it come through. I need a little more. There we go. I'm going to paint, and you're going to see that color shine through. Now I can't keep rubbing and rubbing back and forth with the paint, or the ripples will disappear. So do it and move on. Getting a little more, making my puddle big, taking it up, back and forth strokes. Must be going off the page here a little. More with the puddle. Do not rub where the crayon is. Now, if you have oil pastel, you can be a little bolder. You know what I'm saying? but crayon will disappear if you rub too hard. The blue's really showing up great. It's the white we're more worried about. All right, so we've got the movement. You see how to add. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add some green while my paper is wet. And notice I have some dried green in my tray. And I'm going to add some blue-green. And I'm just going to add movement to the water with my brush. And I'm doing that with how I paint my lines. Movement lines of zigzag, not zigzag as much as wavy. Now I'm starting to see it come out. So paint a little more with your blue and cover it. And notice I didn't worry about any spirals here because we're going to glue our otter in that spot. And then add some green because the water of the ocean is blue-green. And I love watercolor for how well it mixes, don't you? Ooh, I put too much water, so if that happens to you, come over and get more paint. And then you're ready to keep going, moving right along. Trying to make sure I'm in camera range. I'm moving my picture about. And while my paper is still wet, I don't have to go very far before I want to get some bold green in here. It mixes beautifully. And you know what? I think there's a point where you could add too much green, but you can be pretty bold and it'll work out nicely. Remember to use lines that show movement. That water in the ocean is constantly moving. And there is how you paint your background. You could also, what I'm thinking here is I'm looking a little pale. So what I'm gonna do is come straight into here, into the paint itself, and then just add some darker streaks as well. Maybe I could do that with the green. Ooh, yeah. So once you get your basic covering, come back in and get bold. There's the movement. Love it. Who says you can't have action in a still picture, right? All right, and I'm gonna complete my watercolor wash, and then I'm gonna come in now. I've got white spaces. Let's not let that happen. Let's get those white spaces filled in. And while your paper is still wet, come in and add your darker color. Don't just stop, keep going till you get a lot of movement. And we got some green going on in here. There we go. Looks like I didn't cover it there. And keep going until you get the ocean that you're happy with. And I kind of like the darker blue. I don't know about you, so I'm going to add more of that in. Pretty cool. All right. And that's how it looks. All right, so let's take time, create your background. Let's draw the otter. I'm ready to draw the otter, and I am using a piece of computer paper. So our background paper was what we'll use for the background. Our good white drawing paper was used for the background, and now we're going to use computer paper for our otter. So let's begin. Now, this paper is already a little smaller than the background paper, so we know our otter's going to be a wee bit smaller, and that's good. We still want him to be large. Remember, the picture is about him. He's the most important thing in the picture. So we want to give him emphasis. We want him to stand out. We want to emphasize him. So he's gonna be pretty big, draw big. You know that. So the very first thing you're gonna do is almost near the top, put a little mark, I hope you can see, and you're going to draw a half circle. We're gonna use shapes to draw this guy. The next step is to connect with a curved line. That's his chin area. And then we're going to add another curved line kind of arching upward. I can already see that cute muzzle right there. Next, we're going to put right in the middle, I'm going to do a rounded triangle. There it is. It's kind of a triangle shape, but I have a round top on it. That will be the cute otter's nose. And as we have done many times, we're going to do a J and a backwards J to show his little smile. Now, otters have those lovely black beady eyes, so I'm going to put a circle here and a circle here. And I wonder if you noticed Wherever the nose ends here is where one circle goes, and wherever one is here, the nose ends here, we're going to add the other circle. If you notice one circle is drastically smaller than the other, then you just erase and make that eyeball bigger. There we go. Later on when we color this in, we're going to leave a little dot, so I'm going to draw a dot of white right there. Now, Otter's ears are not way up at the top. They're a little off to each side, and they are not very big. So we are going to add Otter ears, half circles on either side of his head. Not too close to the top. Got it? We also like to add that extra little line in the ear. So now it looks like we're on a roll. Of course, I'm going to add a little curve here and here because he does have that little round muzzle. And then to top it off, you know those whiskers that he uses for hunting food. I'm going to make those right here. There we go. We're off to a great start. So now let's talk about his body. If you can draw the letter U, you can create the otter's body. But you don't want to make it too short. You want it to go down nearly to the bottom of the page. So I'm very carefully going to draw down and make my letter U, and then I'm going to come up and connect into the other side of his head. Boom. Now we saw in the pictures, the little video that you watched in advance, that the paws of an otter, when he's floating on his back in the water, he has them over his tummy. So I'm going to draw into the middle, one paw, don't make it too skinny, and the other paw coming in from the other side. See how wide this is here? They're almost touching. And I'm going to do little claw marks. This is what they dig up the clams with, those little claws right there. And now we're going to add his paws on the bottom, his little flippers. It's kind of a rounded square. Do you see that? And then they're going to come up and they're going to go down there. Mine are not exactly the same. I don't think that matters too terribly much as long as they're not drastically different. And add the toenails there. The last step is we're going to come down, stop, come out the other side, a smaller U to create the area where his fur is lighter on his tummy. And the very last step is to add that great otter tail. So I'm going to do one line, and it's just a gentle curve. His tail goes from wide to skinny. So I'm going to move way over here, and I'm going to kind of do the same thing with this line that I've done here. Follow the curve, only I'm getting closer and closer together until I add his tail. So now, ladies and gentlemen, you successfully, I hope, have drawn your otter. Now here's what we're going to do. Instead of using black Sharpie to outline this beautiful creature, we're going to use a black crayon. There again, when you outline, stay on top of the pencil line. Keep the train on the track. And really, if you can, bear down, press hard, because yes, we're going to be using some paint for him too. All right, I'm going to outline this guy and then I'll be back. Well, looky here. Not only have I outlined my entire otter with black crayon, but I have added 2 shades of brown to add texture to his fur. And all that is, people, is some lines that you put close together. You can use a second color of brown if you have it, because you know, 2-color rule in nature. And keep going. And you're going to fill in. Now, I left his nose open because I wanted to remind you that when you color in something solidly, you outline, then you put up the fence, and then you fill it in. Now, for this to work well, remember, you have to color and press hard when you color. All right? All right, so the next step after all the brown fur is done is to take a white crayon, again, pressing really hard, and it's white on white, so you're not going to be able to see it very well, but go ahead and put, and I'm going rocking back and forth because I'm pressing really hard with my crayon, and I'm adding some white textured fur on his tummy. All right, and with this all complete, it's going to be time to bring the watercolors back into action. So I've got my water and my watercolors, and what I'm going to do is dip in the water, make a little puddle. I always like to drag over to the side to make sure I got it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint in between. I'm going to try to stay in my lines as best I can. And I'm just going to gently, don't get any brown on his tummy, his white tummy. I'm going to gently paint in the rest of the otter, and he will look complete and ready to go. Now, one of the things I want to show you, I'm going to pause on painting the brown. Wash my brush because I'm switching colors. Scrape, scrape. I'm going to get a little yellow, put a little puddle in my yellow here. And that's what I'm going to paint in his tummy. And here's why. When this yellow dries, I'm going to paint a little brown over it. And it's really hard to tell that the white lines are showing up because the paper has gotten wet now. But they're there. All right, and I've got the yellow. And I'm gonna let that dry while I paint the rest of the otter. I'm switching colors, so I'm washing my brush, scraping, make a puddle, bring it over here. Ooh, that's a little dark. Add a little water to it. And then I'm gonna continue painting. Now we're gonna cut this otter out, so if you go outside the lines when you're painting him, it doesn't matter. Where it does matter is when you're going between two different colors. That matters. You gotta stay inside your lines, but it's easy to this part. You can just, ooh, I gotta be careful around the yellow. What other spot would I have to be very careful when I'm painting the brown? I don't wanna get brown in his little white muzzle. And now as the paper's starting to dry, you can kind of see the white marks from the white crayon. And I'm just going to finish him up using the point of my brush to stay in my spaces. Now the black eyeballs, you can kind of paint the brown into the edge of them a little bit because the black won't show the brown. But I don't want to get brown in my little white dots there. Use that point of your brush to get in tiny spots. Yes, we've done this before. You're watercolor experts, I'm telling you. And then I'm going to paint inside this ear. I'm going to make it a little darker. In this ear and in this ear. Maybe add that little darker color around the top of his head. Now, because I have too much darkness there, I'm just going to wet my brush, scrape it off, and kind of rub over that and spread it out so it doesn't look too dark. There we go. Oh, I see I forgot a spot. Holy cow, can't do that. Right here. That's right around his armpit area. Well, no, I guess down here would be where he keeps his rocks and stores some food, right? All right, my yellow is not quite dry. I can see the paper. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take a blow dryer because I'm in a hurry here, and I am going to go ahead and blow dry this area so I can add some tan or light brown on top of the yellow. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, I blew dry my picture. He's nice and dry. His yellow tummy is ready to take on a little tan. And so what I'm going to do then is scrape off my brush, get a little bit of this tan. And I know it's tan because I'm going to add a lot of water to it. Water it down. It's not going to be very dark. And there it is. I'm going to scrape off my brush. I don't want my brush to be too well loaded. And then I'm just going to paint lightly over the top of his belly. And that gives you that nice golden color that otters have on their stomach area. If you don't believe me, you can go back and look at the little video showing all those great pictures of otters. And you'll see, it's kind of a goldish fur, sometimes on the face too. So there we go. He's a two-toned otter for sure. The last step would be to cut him out and add him to the background. So I'm going to do that and show you what your finished piece should look like. Stand by. Well, looky here. I have my background, my ocean, I have my otter ready to float on top of the water. But before I do that, I just wanted to show you a little something that I did with the background. As I looked at it and I watercolored, and you can certainly do this with paint too, I decided it wasn't a vibrant, bold blue. And so I came in and I did my watercolor technique with markers, and I kind of just added all around the edges. You can see how it's darker around the edges. I did a little markering, and then I just take water and a brush and wet that marker, and then rub on it a little bit, and then paint out with it from the edges into the middle. And pretty soon you're gonna get that nice, bright outline. It looks a little pale here, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take a little of this that I used over here and paint with it in a spot that's too light. I love using markers in this way. Can you see that I added a little green and a little blue-green? Because you know, the ocean, like all things in nature, it's not just one color either. It has a variety of colors. So here is an example with my blue-green. Looks like I could use a little up here. I'm using the side of the marker and I'm kind of going light, like so. There's a little scribbly area. And then I'm going to take my brush and water, and I'm gonna lay on there for a minute until the watercolor marker becomes loose and paintable. And then I'm gonna blend that turquoise color, that blue-green, into the rest of the paint. If it's too dark, add more water and paint out further with it. And you can see what a huge difference this made to the ocean background. Made it much more bold and vibrant. It has oomph, people. This has oomph. I didn't worry so much about here because who's gonna go in that spot? You're right, the otter. So all that's left then, when this dries, is to take my placemat, put my otter face down, make sure my glue stick's turned up a little, and I am going to go around the outside edge of my otter. Is it okay to go onto the placemat? Why, sure. That's why you have it. And as always, remember, if you get the outside edges glued firmly, it won't matter about the center. All right, and so I'm not gonna put him straight. I'm gonna make it a little fun and have him on an angle. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is my otter, my fuzzy, lovable, sweet otter, sea otter, in his background. I love the texture, I love the lines, I love the movement, the color. How about you? Share what you do on the portal. Can't wait to see how your otters turn out. Have a wonderful week creating. Till next time, bye.